guys, welcome to Sapimix Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via video podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para peconan abrir. Sapimix Studio é plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos no Facebook, subscribe no YouTube ou na plataforma de podcast preferida. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde que está. Sapimix Studio, powered by Credits, botiu ideia? Credits educava e prepara a abo para vir um empresário exitoso. De business plan, guia personal e préstamo para negócio até com 100,000 forinhos. Vira para mês donho com Credits. Subway. Passa na Subway para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Com 7 localidades rond Aruba. Nós está cerca de Ibo. Subway. Swing Masters. Organizando events, conferences of weddings, mister de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing of LED screen, Swing Masters está claro para ser boa fiesta éxito. Swing Masters. E agora, Sapimix Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba, está apresentar.
Yo, you don't know, we going global with this thing. Boom, top class, university. What a global opportunity. Aruba University. Take that, come join me. Together for the local experience. Spread the culture over the nation. Let's build up the community. Learning and teaching in diversity.
Hello, 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 and good afternoon. Good afternoon, bon tardi.
Bon tardi, Cherise. I'm laughing because it feels like it has been forever since we last had this conversation.
But it was only last week, Thursday.
Yes, welcome everyone listening in to our program. What's the title?
Straight up conversation about education, powered by
The University of Aruba. And if you're wondering who we are again, who are you, Cherise?
I'm Cherise Wendeli, Coordinator, Student Affairs, Marketing and Communication at the University. And you are?
Deborah Alexander, Coordinator for the Center for Lifelong Learning, enabling growth within our community.
And the University of Aruba is creating a platform where we can share our ideas, talk about different topics, learn from each other. In that way, we can enable growth, as you said, in our community. Dus turende masha bon tardi. E avemos un tópico masha interessante.
Yes, a very interesting topic with two interesting ladies that I would not have wanted to miss at all. We have our guest here with us. Where should we start? Angelique.
Yes.
They have some complicated last names, don't they?
Van der Hoorn, yes.
Van der Hoorn.
Yes.
Van der Hoorn.
Van der
Gewoon
Hoorn.
heel erg Nederlands.
Heel Nederland. We hebben nog een super Nederlandse achternaam. Of die achternaam, ja. I always mix up when I have to pronounce her name. It's like Eline. Het is Lotter Homan.
Correct.
En waar komt het vandaan? Where does it come from, Eline?
Nederland.
Ja,
Maar ik ben geboren Homan. En later werd Lotter ertussen geplaatst. Want dat is de meisjesnaam van mijn oma vaderszijde. Mm-hmm. En die naam die stierf uit. En toen heeft mijn vader besloten om dat ertussen te zetten.
Oh ja, English, hè? Sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
For those who missed,
But
because Charisse is having technical difficulties.
Yes, because I was like, I'm hearing Lotte, I'm hearing then Eline, but I really couldn't follow it. So our viewers and our listeners who tuned in today, this is a straight up conversation about education. And we're so sorry that you can hear the voices of our very intelligent and very important speakers and guests of today.
Yeah. So we start over
Deborah,
again?
Yes, we go like, hello.
Hello,
Good
Charisse.
afternoon.
Oh my God, that's okay.
No, pero welcome to our guests. And let's get straight to it. So this is
Yeah,
straight
so
up
we
conversation.
About education.
A program powered by the University of Aruba where we can really listen to each other and share opinions so we can learn and create an impact right now.
Yeah.
So Deborah, please so kind as to introduce our guest.
So we've chosen these two beautiful, interesting ladies to speak with us. Angelique, as she introduced herself just now, but I think due to technical difficulties, you couldn't hear. Angelique van der Hoorn.
Yeah, it's just
Dutch
Angelique
name?
van der Hoorn.
Van der Hoorn.
Yes, Dutch name.
And we have then Eline Lotter Homan, as she said. You know, and you was explaining that when your grandmother died, I guess her surname was going to be extinct, and therefore you have a double last name, isn't it? Which
Correct.
still happens in very unique cases, such as yours.
Yes, so that means I'm not married.
Yeah, because
Although I have a partner.
you do have a partner.
Yeah.
So she is taken. She is taken. Both of them are. But that's not the topic for today. It's, as you've seen for those tuning in, it's about confidential advisor and, between brackets, labor law. But before we go into that topic in depth, I think it's good to get to know you guys just a bit better. Because, I mean, I know you quite well, but I think for our audience, they don't. So we always start this conversation with a question. Tell us something about yourself. What would your friends say about you?
And don't be shy.
So let's start with Eline.
Yes.
Well, I do have a very strict appearance. So people that don't know me think I'm like a strict person, very serious, and also maybe they think I'm arrogant. But my friends know better. And they think I am very straightforward, good to have conversations with, and also adventurous. And I have a big heart, and I like to laugh, and I like wine and food pairings.
Yes.
So why did we not do a wine and food with podcast? But anyhow, this is University of Aruba.
Something for Jeff, yes.
Yes, yes. And but just what doesn't your okay, now you're on the radio, so now everybody's listening, but what do you think what would you like to share that people don't know about you yet? Maybe a hobby or something that you really like?
I like
It's very interesting.
horseback riding. I love dogs,
Awesome.
and I like to scuba dive. Like on the water, I really
Relaxing,
really
isn't
relax.
it?
Like it's meditation
Yes.
for me.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah, I love
that.
that too. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And then it goes over to our other guest, Angelique.
That's me.
Make sure we say it correctly.
Angelique.
Pronounce
No,
it.
it's just Angelique.
Pronounce
It's
it
fine.
correct. But yes,
It's
yes.
written down like Angelique, just to make sure, but you just say Angelique.
Angelique, welcome
Or
to the program.
My friends just call me Angie, so that's fine too.
Okay, so we'll go to Angie. So what could you tell us about yourself, or what would your friends say about you?
Well, what they would say about me is that I'm a very helpful person. I'm always ready for assistance or anything. Pretty much outgoing when I'm with my friends, but as Eline said, when people don't know me, they think I'm really strict, and I don't want to say like the word, but it's a resting face, you know.
RBF.
That's- yeah.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm very helpful. I am a very loyal friend, and I would like to, have the world to be a better place.
And you know, Deborah, I must say, I was very honored to get to know Eline and Angelique off the set. And I must say, they're both very intriguing women. And also, what you do in your life and what you also share with others, I think it contributes widely to the community. So I'm going to start with saying thank you.
No,
It's
I'm
Thankful
very welcome.
Thursday.
Thankful Thursday. And I've
Yeah.
met both. I mean, at least Eline and I have had lunch many times and good conversations. But I think it's nice if other people got to know her. So, Eline, you know, it's about education. I think if you could share your educational trajectory with us, that led up until what you do right now as a lawyer. So, share with us your education trajectory. And I know maybe it's not always, it was glammed and easy. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But give people an idea of how that looked for you.
Okay, my education. Let me start with middle school. So actually, the advice was for me to go HAVO, but my parents decided that Atheneum was better for me. So they pushed me to try for and aim for Atheneum. So I did that. It wasn't easy. I really had to work hard for it, and also sometimes have extra lessons. But I did manage, not with very high grades, but I I got my diploma. And that also continued when I went to the university. Like, I was a very effective student. Like, I did the bare minimum. That was enough.
Really?
And the rest, I was partying.
You were a student, you know. There are more things on your mind than only education. Yeah.
I left the bird's nest with 18 years, so
You got it out of your system,
Yeah.
right?
I just had to, like I said, I'm adventurous, so I was doing a lot of side activities next to studying. But I did do everything I needed to do in order for me to get my papers. Instead of only doing a thesis or only doing apprenticeship, I did both. So I did an extra year so I could do both. And I also had 2 different specialties. So you could suffice with one, I did 2. So that was not really the bare minimum. I did go
You
a
did
little
much
bit,
more than
yeah,
the
I
bare
did
minimum. So,
a little bit more.
so
But
if you have a parent or a student listening in, because people always go like, you're so lucky, but you had to work for it. But you also had a life, you know, which is important, is finding that balance. What would you say to those youngsters preparing for exam, probably going to fly away or even attend the University of Aruba? What would you say about the balancing? Because sometimes as parents, you're a bit skeptical, like, van, that's it well. And on the other side, you did both. You said you did the bare minimum, but you did more than that. And you had a good student life.
yes. I just made sure that I was really paying attention during classes.
Yeah, that's a good tip.
That's very
yeah.
The work.
Yeah.
Because then if you have to prepare for exams on your own, then you can have the context and you understand what it was all about. So I just locked myself up 1 week before the exam, and I was
1 week.
Yeah.
Very recognizable.
So then I would just study non-stop the whole day.
Yeah.
And, and after the exam, I would have all forgotten it.
Yeah.
I think we
Not
most do.
all,
We
but
Yeah.
so that was
Yeah.
how I did it. But also to remember things, write things down. Like I was always making summaries, and when you write things down, you remember them better. So
Right,
that
it's
was
a
also
method.
useful.
Yeah.
And so that was my university period. And
Yeah, I was just thinking because you were born in, zeg ik het goed, Tegelen? Zeg ik het goed?
Tegelen.
Tegelen.
Tegelen, yeah.
Tegelen. I was like, Tegelen, Tegelen. And then you went to, that's where exactly, for those wondering on the...
I studied in Maastricht.
Yeah.
And,
In the south.
En
Yes.
Tegelen is eigenlijk...
And my apprenticeship I did with Ernst & Young in Amsterdam.
Okay, it's a
great.
different culture.
I was living in Haarlem with my boyfriend at the time. And after that, I moved to Zandvoort and went work in Amsterdam.
So you've been...
You've been
Yeah.
a few
around.
places.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Well,
putting it
not
that
like
way.
that.
I can see this is going to be very
Starting.
interesting
I
conversation.
know. I see
But you see,
Angelique
but she's already
is
hinting.
feeling comfortable.
She's feeling comfortable, but this also ties in with our topic of
Yeah.
confidential
Yes.
advisor.
Yes. So.
And you know, where do we draw the line
Yes.
in
Yes.
comments, intimidation, harassment, bullying?
I
Yeah.
didn't
Yes.
mean it like that.
No, we're just kidding because this is it. Because sometimes it's in these conversations that you say, okay, when we start to talk about having a confidential agent, what does that really mean for us at work and the workplace, as you as a participant, not as a sideliner. But I want to thank Eline for being so open about it, because everybody's like, they just see and they're like, oh, you know, she just did straight A, she got from point A to point B, but actually you did the sacrifice. You had a wonderful student life, but you found the balance, and that is what you want to do, that everybody find their balance. Don't envy, just encourage the persons, but find your own balance, what works for you. So Deborah, if you allow me, I would like to ask Angelique, what do your friends say about you before we can go to the topic?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say that a lot of what Eline said, I recognize, because I'm born in Aruba and I went to the Netherlands to live with my mom and my sister.
At what age?
That was at age 4. So I went to the
very
Netherlands
young.
when I was 4, and then the Netherlands, I did my primary school and then my high school, and then at 16 they decided, let's move back to Aruba. So when you arrive in Aruba when you're 16 and just, I was ready for the move, because I was, you're 16, you're excited and you like Aruba and you like the beach and everything. So when you come here and you come here at Vier Havo, it was like, okay, partying is a lot more interesting, or like school came to priority number 3 or 4. It was my friends and going out and just having fun and recognizing a new culture. Well, not really new, but still coming
well,
back
you left
to
when you were 4, so it's different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I do recognize a lot. And with me, it was after that I finally made it through HAVO, because after collegia, I went to avondhavo, and then again, I didn't graduate, so I need to do another year. So eventually, when I was 20, I think I went to the States because I didn't want to go back to the Netherlands. I wanted a new adventure, so I went to the States. And I finished my bachelor's there in 3.5 years instead of 4. Nice. So I just went on full speed, because then it clicked. Like I always think back, and that's the moment that I saw how I needed to learn for my exams. Like how do I need to study? Like, okay, like Eline said, half the work is just paying attention in class, and then you get to work at home and you study, and then you're like, okay, I heard this, and then it just stays with you a lot more.
You connect the dots as well better.
Yes,
you're able to connect
and you're a little older, so that's why I think always that kids are always forced to choose like a richting, like a
one of theirs,
direction, just way too early.
Yeah, and that our study system is so much different than the Netherlands or the American system, because American system has different steps.
Definitely.
And so does the system in the Netherlands. It looks like the same, but it's not, because there are different options and there are different ways, roads that lead to Rome. In education, we don't have that. So a shout out to all youngsters, because I think that we have to do a lot of sacrificing and a lot of balancing and a lot of teaching ourselves how to educate ourselves, how to learn, how to find that balance, etc. That both of you manage. So
and you have to go through it just to learn yourself, get to know yourself.
I was just curious, Angelique, because where in the Netherlands did you live?
When we moved to Nuenen. That was in Dorpje next to Eindhoven.
Okay.
So I went 4 years in Nuenen.
Some geography today.
4 years in Nuenen, then 4 years in Eindhoven, and then we moved when I was 12 to Hilversum. This little way up. And then that was like eerste HAVO. We made the move, so it was like, I think it was January, and it was so at 12 years old, my parents decided to move, and then at 16. But it was all okay, and I went through it.
Why I'm actually asking, because I think there's a perception in the Netherlands that of kids in the Netherlands, that they're partying quite young. So I would have expected from that transition when you moved, to small island, it's much different. Definitely. But it's like it's so.
No, I mean fun, within the limits, of course, and I have two bigger sisters, so I know what they've been through. So I learned a lot from them. So, but I didn't do anything crazy. Just you have other priorities at that time.
Yeah, but if I may, you then chose to study in America. How was that transition with your parents? Because your sisters, they went back to the Netherlands. They stayed here.
No, my sisters, one already moved. One always stayed in the Netherlands because she was studying already there, and the other sister just stayed here.
And then you decided to wander off.
Yeah.
How was that transition with your parents?
Going, so I was going.
How was that transition with your parents? Because I'm asking this so those who are listening in, can understand that everybody has a different destiny.
Yes, true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very lucky to come to a very close family. So my mom is my best friend. So when I moved to the States, she was, when I had just like my mom was there to help me out, because I had examenvrees. Like I had severe anxiety when I had exams. So sometimes I would just like black out, and I would just like, my mom would be like, I'm just coming just to support you, and she would come for a couple of days and then go back to Aruba, and I would be fine. And so I was very lucky with that.
So you see parents go above and beyond sometimes to really support. I'm sure you've had that as well, Eline.
Yes.
That support from your mom and parents in those anxiety, or those when you're partying, please get back in the dorm and study. But
my mother, she came along with me when I moved to Aruba for 1 month to just make sure that I was okay, to buy things for the apartment, and
it's the fun part for the mom as well.
I didn't have no driver's license yet, so I had to do that within the month.
Yeah, because Eline, people would think, yes, they're seeing Dutch, but you have been here, if I'm not mistaken, 25 years. No, is it 25 already?
No, it's 21 years.
Okay.
I
Oh, wow,
came in
it's not-
2001.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was it about Aruba? Because I mean, your parents came, so you were
Yeah.
forced. But I'm just trying to understand. For you, you
Yeah.
finished school, and then
I came voluntarily. Yeah.
Yeah. Make it sound so easy.
Well, initially it was for 3 years because the apprenticeship of lawyers is for 3 years.
Mhm.
So the contract was for 3 years as well. And well, I liked it and I just stayed. So
wow.
yeah.
Well, for those of you who just tuned in, this is a straight up conversation about educational program powered by the University of Aruba. And today I'm with my co-host or host,
Deborah, Alexander.
and Sharice Hundeli. And today that ties us right into the topic. We kind of scratched the surface a bit on the topic. So Deborah, go right ahead and introduce because there's so much to say and we only got a half an hour. So
It's a half an hour and there's so many things about both their bios I can go in. I know you're both moms of sons, for example, active kids. So, there's so much more to you that people don't know, but we would love to share. But one of the things you both have in common, and it's also because Sharice and I recently obtained, or how can you say, partial certificate? Is it
it's a partial certificate,
as confidential advisor, confidential agent. In Dutch, it would be vertrouwenspersoon. And
thanks to Medwork and especially thanks to Angelique, who is a very important person in getting this all together. Oh yes, and shout out
to Annemieke Kirsch
and Jan in the Netherlands.
Yes, they're tuning
and
in.
all our other confidential agent in Bonaire. Hello, kunta kubus ng Ayabanda. So coming back to the topic, it's very important because a lot happened. A lot happened on The Voice in the Netherlands. I mean, in Aruba, there's a lot happening right now, and we see and we know the importance of having a confidential agent, but there's so many things that have to be in place. But first, Angelique, just quick, what is a confidential agent?
Okay, confidential advisor, so a vertrouwenspersoon, is basically the first place someone can report unwanted behaviors or which what they say in Netherlands, ongewenst gedrag. So it can come from bullying or intimidation, discrimination, sexual harassment. I know a lot of person always think like the worst one is sexual harassment. Of course, it's one of the worst, but it's not the most common one. And that's very surprising that everyone say, ongewenst gedrag or unwanted behavior, and they think immediately about sexual harassment, which is very important to think about, and that's super unacceptable. But there are a lot of more that comes around unwanted behavior. So it's really important for companies to be able to recognize and let their employees be aware of this and what their company culture and code of conduct actually is. So in order to prevent this in their company, and one of those is
Angelique is like, okay, I'm gonna go. No.
Is the confidential advisor. It's just one part of it because it all bubbles down to making sure that your employees are aware that it's unaccepted in the company.
Yeah, and I would like to say, so Medwork organized it.
Correct.
Angelique works at Medwork, for those who don't know. And a group participated. It was quite a large group, of which Sharice and I were 2 out of the pool.
I think it was 11 here and
Horacio ook erbij.
yes, that was 17 and then a few
in Bonaire as
also.
well.
So we went
yes.
to 20. I think it's 20
Yeah.
in total.
But just we're talking now about confidentialness, and I want to go and lean to really give us the legal framework so people can understand as well. But Deborah, I know you played a very important role on how this all came, how the ball started to roll in Aruba. And I just would like to just share that very briefly with our audience so they can know where it came from. Because now we're hearing a lot of programs. There's a lot of things going on in Aruba, out of Aruba, anywhere in the world. And, we recognize it. But how did it come to Aruba? And then I want to go to Eline to really talk about that legal framework so people can understand better. Deborah.
Well, the question, Sharice, is not like I think, but we were discussing this morning. And I said, some sometimes things happen. I've come to the University of Aruba, and you think, okay, what will I do with it? And if I'm not mistaken, it was 2016, that was January, I got an email from this person, you know, Karen Bosman, and she wanted to give a book presentation on, the title of the book was Spugen op de Tosti van Hans, and it was a conversation about sexual harassment in the workplace. And I remember I had to think, okay, is Aruba ready for this? Is this going to be a controversial lecture at the university, yes or no? And I chose to say, well, it's a book. It's based on her experience. And since then, Karen Bosman has been a bit, you know, the one rolling the ball to where we are right now, because indeed they came then with the app.
The report app.
The report app where persons, employees could report sexual of unwanted behavior within the workplace. And after that, you see bit by bit, you know, initiatives have been taken. The most important one is now that of Medwork. And I think it just, you know, when I saw it, I was like, okay, I think I want to be part of this first pool in making a change in the way we behave with each other within our work environment, because it's something we don't really talk about, and we're not often aware. I think with many things we just keep on doing it because it has been done before. But since then, you know, I've really made, in the joke you made, it's like, oh yeah, how do I make jokes with female, but even male colleagues? Have they...
Well, you know what I've learned through this experience that I'm having now with Confidential Advisor, I'm still very eminent in saying that everyone needs to be themselves. So if you are someone that calls someone you know, always douchey. Like, if it's something really common for you and you have no other intentions with it, then in my opinion, it's fine. But then you have other people that might think otherwise. So, but I think that it's the responsibility as well for the one that is receiving the unwanted behavior to say, you know what, I don't like that you called me that, so please don't do that again. And that the other person needs to know that he needs to respect that and everything. So, but everyone needs to stay themselves. Like, everyone just needs to be who they want to be, and treat people like they want it to be treated too.
But
now I want to, when you're finished, I want to go over to Eline, because I know you wrote an article. I wanted to know what led to you writing that article, and then explain a bit of the framework so we can go back to this, because people need to understand that it's not only about the confidential advisor, but we need to have that framework everywhere. So why did you write the article? What led to it? And what could you tell us about the legal framework?
Well, I was looking for a topic that was relevant at that point of time. So I'm always checking to see what lives within the community. And I saw all the articles popping up from Holland, and one after the other, like The Voice really triggered something, and then you had Overmars, and then you had Marco Borsato, they had Ali B, and they just kept coming, and they are still coming. So it's just continuing. And so I thought, you know what, when it comes to this topic, I really don't believe that Aruba is any different from the Netherlands when it concerns unwanted behavior. You will have it here as well. You know, we are not immune for those kind of behaviors. So that was the reason why I decided to write about it. And I also wanted to know myself really what a legal framework was. So I did my legal investigation, I did my research, and it was a very satisfying outcome for the legal framework, because, I agree with it that the assessment that a judge will do to decide whether it's acceptable or not, or whether somebody should be punished by the employer with either immediate dismissal or warning. Like, you have to find a balance in, also it has to be proportionate to the behavior. And I saw different kind of judgments, because a lot of people, they always tend to respond to this topic, this discussion, like, oh, you have so many snowflakes, you can't say anything anymore, I'm not allowed to do anything anymore, I have to just like be like a robot, and it's not true, because there are judgments in which the judge just said, you know what, this kind of behavior, maybe it was unwanted by you, but there was not really a line crossed. Like, everybody has different experiences and different values, but the judge takes into account an objective assessment of the behavior. So they don't really take into account subjectively, was this person, because of the experience that that person had specifically, that caused them to respond to a certain way. No, they in general, would a normal person have felt offended or sexually offended or assaulted or so it's being
a thin line.
Yeah,
you know,
that's
Deborah,
what, that's
it's a
one of the things I was
thin
going to say
line.
before. It's a thin line, but also the cultural aspect, especially here in
Yes.
Aruba, where certain behavior that we have, as you said, douchey. I can't remember if it was with you we had this conversation where in Aruba everyone is each other's douchey, but you don't
Right.
hear that much in English-speaking countries or
Right.
darling, sweetheart, continuously
You
as
know, if you say it in Dutch,
Of
it's
een
like,
Nederlands liefje, je
ja,
zegt-
hey schat. Weet je, you can't do that at work. Here is douche is just a little
part of the
different,
culture,
but you
yeah.
still have people that say, you know, I prefer not that you call
And
me like
that's,
You know,
that.
taboe
where the thin line
Exactly,
is,
that's
what
where
you
the
were
thin
talking
line,
about,
yes,
Eline.
Yes.
What do you think? I see Elina thinking as a
Yes,
lawyer.
yes, because
no, for me, I don't really see it as a thin line, in a sense that what Angelique said, the person that is the recipient of the behavior should indicate what is undesirable for you, and then the person can take that into account. To
that's
a
what I
certain
mean with a
extent.
thin line, because
But
they
the
may
judge,
not.
You
Right.
know, if you as an employer
Yes.
fire somebody over behavior like that, then it's a different kind of assessment.
Yes, but
Yeah.
the judge will look at the code of conduct of the company. So if in the code of conduct it states that, like, don't call each other certain koosnaampjes, then they shouldn't do it at the workplace. And if there's a melding
So-
for that,
So that even
then-
brings them
yeah.
the next question. Code
Right.
of conduct.
Code of
How
conduct.
many
Yeah.
organizations here in Aruba even think about a code of conduct? I would
Or do we
assume and
have?
hope.
I hope now a lot.
Okay, but on the research what you
Not
did you notice
Not
that
enough, no.
companies have a code of conduct, and is that very much discussed, or is it just a document in the drawer? Is it discussed? Are people aware of what their rights are? Because every time when something comes up really big in the press, it's like it's been lingering on for a long time. So did you find anything in your research, or most companies, are we saying, hey, Aruba is okay? Most companies have a code of conduct? For example, because there's more than just a code of conduct.
In my work, I have attended to plenty of clients, corporate clients, and they have protocol handbooks, employee handbooks that contain the rules of conduct. But however, well, mostly those corporate clients are the ones that are internationally based.
Okay.
The bigger companies that already have, because of maybe American
Correct.
basis, and they are really focused on to potential liability, etc.
Right.
So
Right.
they are more focused on it and aware of it. The smaller local companies,
Not so much.
Not so much.
And
much
that's
less.
where, yeah.
So the awareness needs to be increased, because it all starts with the communication towards the employees.
Correct.
So everybody knows where they stand
Correct.
and what they have to comply with. And the awareness needs to be created, like, okay, these are the rules of conduct. And if somebody doesn't comply with it and it's really bothering you, then there is a contact person that you can approach.
Contact person, Deborah, she's mentioning something else. Is there, it's written in the protocol, in the guidelines, in the handbook, whatever you want to call it. Angelique, I'm looking at Deborah. Angelique, does every company have a contact person?
Well, usually they put the contact person as the HR, which is kind of in a conflict of interest, because is that the same HR that is looking at the AO's, at the beoordeling and
Yeah.
stuff like that? So then you have a
A
conflict of
conflict.
interest. So do you really want to go to a person that evaluates you on that aspect and to just say like, I want to tell you something about my my manager? Like, you're not going to
Yeah.
do that. So then you put the threshold too high for your employees. So it's really important to have someone like a confidential advisor that is confidential.
Yeah.
I mean, the words
Independent.
already says it.
Yeah.
Independent, exactly.
Independent,
And not an
external,
HR.
internal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think as you're saying this, I think what to emphasize, we were having this conversation.
Importance, yeah.
It could be, there's some organizations where Sharice indicated the HR department is quite large, and you can,
Yes.
just
have
have
different
someone. But a
responsibilities. Yeah.
confidential advisor can be actually anyone.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
There's something like a confidential advisor pool. Like
Yeah.
that's the idea where Medwork wants to go. So that's why we're doing the training for a lot of people. So we can, in the future, we can form a pool for the ones that are interested to do that. Of course, there are some confidential advisors that only want to do it or only are allowed to do it for their company. But it's the idea is that we form a pool so that companies can
Reach
give
out
the
to Medwork.
options,
Okay.
yes, and give the
yeah.
options to their employees to choose their own confidential advisor. So they will
will
go to
become
a
private.
website
Yeah.
and they choose whether they want to talk to a female or a male, or maybe they recognize some faces that, okay, I don't want to go to them, but they have more options. And
Yeah.
and that's the idea that we want to implement out there, that the threshold needs to be as low as possible.
As minimum. But before, I know you have a question, but I'm just going back to, and for those listening in, this is straight up conversation about education. And usually when we talk about sexual harassment, everybody thinks that's all what's
Right.
out there, but that's not so.
That's definitely not
I
true.
think harassment, could you kind of name up the aspect, because people was like, oh, it's not sexual, so would I have to go to a confidential? What are the other areas?
Well, you have bullying. That's actually number one here in Aruba.
Thanks for pointing that out, because everybody thinks it's sexual harassment.
Right, and it's not. It's bullying and very much intimidation.
Yeah.
So, and it's a lot of the times it's from higher up to down. So, and that's why we want that the code of conduct will be implemented from top to bottom. So, the management needs to give the example for the rest of the company. And if they already are intimidating to their employees, what about them? They're not going to feel really comfortable in their company.
Yeah. Like I was just looking at Eline's article I have, and she really mentioned some things as dubbelzinnige, so double remarks. And because we think intimidation, harassment, we think it's really, echt extreem. Onnodige aanraking, so unnecessary touching, but also gluren, like glimpsing as, because sometimes walking by colleagues, especially depending on the setting of your organization, and that's why I wanted to say we also always assume it's maybe male harassing females, but in our training we got several examples where there were actually females intimidating sexually, other
Females
ways
intimidating men.
Yes,
And
it can be from both sexes, but it can also be from the same sex to each other. So it's not only men to women, it's women to men, and it's women to women, and men to men. So it's a whole culture that just needs to be get rid of. and I mean, management needs to recognize that the psychosocial workload needs to be a good environment at the work, because not only will it affect their work performance, but also their health. And what do you get then if someone's not feeling well at work? They're going to call in sick. And then you don't have the person for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes a burnout for a couple of months. And that's what you want to prevent. So that's why important just to have something in place, protocols, code of conduct, but also the consequences, what happens if a person crosses the line.
And I think that's where a lot of clients end up after a while with you, Eline, because someone either has been sexually harassed at work, maybe intimidated, has been on sick leave for quite a while. There arises a discussion, a labor how could you say that? Conflict.
Yes.
And then they end up with you, and it costs not only the organization money, but it costs a relationship that would not be, restored. Even
Yes, and especially at work. But before Elaine answer that, because someone is saying, yes, but if I told them not to call me douchey and they still call me douchey, do I report it? And if there is no one confidential person at work, where do I report it? What do I have to do? Because all, for example, hotels have a code of conduct. What do I do? Because I don't want this. So someone, thank you very much for your question on Facebook. So she's saying, hey, what do I do? Okay.
Yeah, well,
Could you go to Medwork or?
Well, at this moment, we still don't have it that implemented that you can just call Medwork. Of course, if your company is affiliated to Medwork, then you can always ask for a preventive consult with one of the bedrijfsartsen. So you can just have it, at least take it off your chest.
And I'm assuming a few on what you can do as a person yourself, how you can protect yourself.
Yes, and also how to protect yourself, but how to go about what you just experienced. Like get tips from the doctor from, okay, you need to do this and that, or I can refer you to a psychologist. So if you don't have a vertrouwenspersoon still implemented in your company, think about that. You might
escalatieladders.
Yes,
I think as we
because
discussed.
the idea is to do it the informal way. Because the formal way, then they get to Eline, and then like the case starts, and it's very difficult for all parties involved to get it that
To
far.
de-escalate.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's the goal.
I think
de-escalate.
Eline answer this one, and then
Yeah.
we should give our advice as well as
Yes,
confidential
because
advices.
because we're all doing it, and we all we see different workplaces is different. It has like a different tint or a different way of interpreting it, and that's why it's very good that especially Medwork. I know you're coming up with a course. You're going to tell us a bit more about that in September. That we are all true to ourselves and know what it means, and we stand together. But from a legal perspective, because that's when once you get there, the relationship at work is different.
Yes. Well, I know, for example, from Medwork, they don't limit themselves to give advice to the person that is suffering from it.
Yeah, who's the victim at that moment.
Is the victim at the moment. So they give advice to that person. While respecting the confidentiality of the conversation of that person, they also will report to the employer and give them advice, like you have to implement such and such measurement in order to prevent or rehabilitate this person to be able to turn back to the workforce. So it's on both sides that advice is being given. If I'm correct,
totally
okay?
correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when they come to me, most of the time I'm assisting employers. Then the request is already like, okay, what should I do? Can I punish said person that committed the unwanted behavior in such and such way? Like, can I fire this person? Will it hold up in courts? So they're seeking for advice about what is the best measure in this specific circumstance. So then I am assessing whether it complies with both subsidiarity and proportionality.
Legal terms for those. How can you explain
Yeah.
that?
Could you break it down?
In other words, is the punishment is it in proportion with the behavior committed, or is a less severe punishment also sufficient in order to effectively address the situation? Because you always have to use the least far-going measure that effectively addresses the situation. You cannot, I say, van een olifant of van
van een nog een olifant
you know.
maken,
So you really have to be in proportion. So and most of the time, sadly it ends up in if the person that committed the behavior is accused of the behavior and doesn't recognize itself, is the person on top of the ladder, like the manager,
CEO,
then the victim a lot of times is being laid off, and then a package will follow.
And unfortunately, usually they're women. because we have a lot of unmarried women or single women with kids in certain position. And, we're not saying it happens in one sector, but we often hear it, especially people then use the COVID as an excuse, the pandemic. But before I go back to you, Deborah, somebody says, because oh my goodness, we're just creating a new function. It should be part of the HR manager's function. I know you also did the course on an advisor. Now, Angelique just talked about it. And, we looked at HR from different perspective. What would be, according to you, just based on your knowledge and your experience as well, as in what would be the pros and the cons of an HR manager being the confidential advisor?
Well, I think it was indicated as well as by Angelique, are you able to be objective and independent? And HR is in loan. I mean, you're in service
Right.
of the employer, and you're supposed to guard the employers and employees. But many times, I think on Aruba, I don't want to generalize or get in any trouble. And this is my personal opinion, not that of the
Yes,
university.
but the university creates a platform where we can share our opinions, and we should respect each other's opinion.
We can share, and what you hear is that most people feel it's not an objective and neutral position within the organization, and it creates a bit of a drempel for you to go to your HR. We've discussed this in the course. It could be a colleague. Right. Because I think we should not have this misconception that a confidential advisor is going to solve all your problems. Correct. I think that's one of the things we really have to make clear, is that this is a listening ear and person who's going to foremost, above everything, respect your privacy. Because not just because you came to me or Charisse or Angelique or Eline as a confidential advisor mean that we're allowed to share this information within your organization. They're here to guide you in making the right decision as to what your next step would be. We can even, if needed, accompany you in such a conversation, but again, stepping back and empowering you, because I think
that is where I wanted to come to.
It's quite easy for someone else to solve your problem, but then it will come back again.
The responsibility is still with the person that wants to report.
I think one of the things that Annemiek emphasized is that, as you would say, if you are in a race, you cannot be running faster than the person who organizes, because they are the one with the questions, and you can just support, empower, be a listening ear, give them options, use your different methods to de-escalate whatever problem it is and show them in the right direction, but you can't run and do it. And then I'm going to ask a very, very intriguing question.
So is the right person the HR? I think in our course we really discuss this, and I think it could be anyone.
Correct.
It could be anyone within your organization who we even said that you can have this person nominated, because I think within every
I always like to use the
conception.
The miscongeniality. That's the person that you want to
we're all talking about a movie right now.
No, but that's usually the person that is more open in a company that you want to tell your story to.
And it doesn't have to be the HR. It doesn't have to be. It can be somebody as simple as you would say, a doorman, somebody who knows the company and knows that everything that goes on there.
And also where others, I think every organization have that one person that's respected, and if an organization could see that and identify that person and have them be that listening ear.
And educate that person.
That person. So if the person doesn't necessarily have to have academic degree. No. They should be able to, listen, to make judgment, give proper advice, but indeed with a course as doing confidential advice, you would give people tools to achieve that. And just have that person, be there for his or her colleagues, and not look at it also only in the monetary aspect of, it's they need to go and talk to this person under my under werktijd, so during work, and I'm paying them for this and this, because at the end of the day, it will cost them more once you end up at Eline. Yeah.
Well, there's also a potential liability of the employer. So then directly you will be confronted with the monetary consequences.
Correct.
You are already confronted with monetary consequences the moment that somebody is on sick leave. As an employer, it will cost you money.
There you go.
So that is already an expensive aspect of it. The subsequent monetary consequence is when you have to lay off persons and maybe give them a package or or you have to hire a lawyer to attend to the matter. It will cost you. But the victim can also hold its employer liable for damages, because when you have a certain, when you suffer from depression because of it, or
it has further
psychological consequences, you can also request for damages, because that is workplace related suffering and consequence that you could hold the employer liable for. And if you haven't complied as an employer with your duty of care, that is also implemented in the labor law. You have a general duty of care to ensure a safe workplace.
So even if you don't have your guidelines, your handbook, people know that they are the principle in the basic law, and that is for everyone.
Everyone.
Thank you for underlining that. Continue.
There is one specific article in the law that prohibits discrimination. Discrimination based on geslacht, the sex, gender. And this sexual harassment is considered as such. So that falls under that article, and it's always non-acceptable. So as soon as you meet those conditions for it to be considered unwanted behavior, and you haven't done enough as an employer to prevent it, then you are liable.
Okay.
So
and that counts for everyone. Small companies, big companies.
Every employer.
Yes.
So one of the aspects that can be expected from an employer for them to fulfill with a duty of care is to have those rules of conduct in place, is to have a klacht procedure, a specific procedure for the complaints in place, and adequately attend to it. Also to have enough guidance to rehabilitate this person back to the workforce when possible.
As I'm listening to you, Eline, I'm going to ask you something. I don't expect you to, I'm not sure if you can answer it, but Deborah, you were, I think a few months back, you brought the Ombudsman, was here in Aruba. We had different lecturers. What is the situation in Aruba? And then if I'm going to go, someone listening in, they're going to go like, okay, so where can I go if I need help? And how do we get this structure? And where do we go? Because there's so much going on. Because, only when there's a big event and something happens, if it's sexual harassment or bullying, then it comes to the light. But then we're too late. We want Aruba to be preventive. So could you shed any light on the Ombudsman or what's happening here in Aruba so, everybody can know a bit more? It's an indirect question. I don't think you can answer it completely, but can you maybe share some information on that and what people can do now?
The Ombudsman is a whole different topic, because mostly that is also where people can go to when they have a complaint about government authorities, and it's not specifically for employer-employee related matters. So I don't know if you really want to continue going into
No, I just wanted to say, because for people to know there is a difference, because when we talk about a confidential advisor or we talk about a whistleblower, it's almost time, so we're not going to get into it's completely different topic. And the one does not have to exempt the other, but that we know that having a confidential advisor is differently, and we need to have the guidelines in place from each company. So I want to look at you, because I know Medwork is giving presentations as well as different companies,
we're doing
and elaborate a bit
in Dutch. So awareness to. We always want to start with the managers, of course. So we start with the managers, make them aware of the types of harassment that there is, and also the consequences for not implementing this as a preventive tool. Like the consequences, as Eline said, are monetary, but also sick leaves, which is also monetary. But I mean, it creates an environment at the workplace, not only for the person that experienced it, but also for the colleagues, and it's not a healthy environment. So you want to prevent that, and one of the prevention tools is the confidential advisor. So it comes down to confidential advisor, but the main goal is to prevent workplace harassment. That's all what it is, because you don't want a confidential advisor, but you don't have code of conduct. So you have every month, you're going to have 4 or 5 people are going to go to the confidential advisor and nothing happens. That's not the way to do it. So it's also important if you have a confidential advisor that every month they bring out like a newsletter just to say, hey, I'm still here. If you have something, let me know. Remember that the code of conducts are this in this company. So let's please treat each other right and everything. So that's the main goal. Let's treat each other right in order to prevent harassment so that the confidential advisor doesn't have to be that busy. I mean,
or actively involved in more in the prevention, so that they can do more prevention, so people are aware of what are their rights, but also how they should behave at work, the expectations.
And it's very much recommendable to focus on what's accepted, not only what they're not allowed to do.
You know, Cherise, we're just looking, and of course the comment on, you know, where should the confidential advisor lie has created quite a stir, because someone is replying saying you're actually saying that an HR is not capable and responsible. And that's why I said, you know, there's a disclaimer is you're not saying that they're responsible, but in many organizations the drempel is quite high, and that's why you're
it's
also
from the other side.
It's from the other side. It has nothing to do with someone's
But
capability.
The HR, no, definitely not.
Yes or no, but most people only go to their HR when they feel maybe there's an issue, or there's an issue with from the employer to the employee. It's not always a relationship. I'm not saying generalized, but it's something that really needs to be fostered, and it prevents. I mean, it's the same. We had this conversation as University of Aruba is also looking into this.
Also looking into
you
this.
sense that some. The question is: do you want an internal or external confidential advisor? Do I feel confident going to my colleague Cherise, who's vertrouwenspersoon, who I also know quite well, to complain about maybe a staff member? I think she would be partijdig in her decision making, yes or no. So sometimes maybe an external person, takes away that barrier. So these are all things that, but I think it's important that the HR of any organization really think about this, but also have a conversation. Because going back to the question of, I've told someone not to call me douchey. Maybe you've indicated it to the person. Maybe you can take it to your manager. But I think it's also important, as you said, the colleagues play an important role as well.
Correct.
Because they also either participate or are observers. I remember there was a whole list of names in the training for everyone. Everyone carries a role in when this is observed. Because many times you see someone getting bullied and you just turn your face the other way and think, oh well, as long as it doesn't happen to me, it's okay. No, it's not. It's not okay.
We have a duty together to assure the healthy environment. But I wanted to add something about the HR. I mean, if you have a company and the HR is the miscongeniality, if in other words,
that's fine.
That's the person that a lot of people have confidence in, then it's okay. I mean, it's not advisable, but it is an option. I mean, it's not black and white.
There's just not one recipe for each company.
Right. So if you have a team of 15 HRs and you have someone doing the payroll and something doing different, and you have someone that can take the role of a transperson, then it's totally okay. It's not if you have one confidential advice. I mean, if you have one HR person and that person
has
is
to
also
do everything.
The confidential advisor. I mean, I even think that person, it's too much for that person, because confidential advisor is just not something that you do within your work duty that at the moment. So it's something that
at the hospitals, people have been given an X amount of hours
per week
to fulfill this role. So
if you want to do it right, you have to do it like that. You need to give the confidential advisor, the internal confidential advisor, some time to implement it right in the company.
Correct.
And this is something, sorry, just to add, it needs to know, if I'm not mistaken, this is in onderwijs, in education in Netherlands, it is obligatory already. It is
correct. And all companies.
And all to have a vertrouwenspersoon. So this is not something new that we're just creating or just because of the voice and you're going into this hype. But there are institutions, education institutions, where we collaborate with that have confidential advices set up. So it will shift eventually from education, or is shifting from education to every area where there's a relationship between persons, legally. But
Ladies, I'm totally empowered, but it is time. I know I'm the timekeeper
I saw
as
Eline
well.
writing down something. I
Yes,
think
but everybody gets like Deborah and
minute.
Angelique will get like a half a minute, so we can allow Elena
Yeah,
to have a
I'll
minute.
skip
But
my minute.
this is a very important conversation. We hope you listeners that you are empowered to have discussed. It's these conversations that really matters and that will bring about change. So, Eline, we come to the end of the program. What would you like to share with our audience who've been listening in? And thank you for those who've been reacting as well.
Yeah, so in regards to those that have been reacting, the first question was, what do I do if the person doesn't respond to my requests? And you already mentioned, well, go to your manager. If you as an employee go to your manager and have that complaint about a colleague and they don't do anything, then that already can be a cause for liability if it have further consequences for that person. So maybe, the komidushi is not really adequate example for the seriousness that,
Yes.
but, there are examples that could lead to potential liability if the management is unresponsive to those complaints and requests. Another thing is that when they said about the HR not being
responsible or
so
Not being an adequate person,
it is all about the perception of the person that is the victim. So if you are the victim and you have to go to the HR person whose employment conditions and bonuses or salary are being determined by the person that is maybe also responsible for the unwanted behavior, then the victim can feel, I don't feel comfortable going to the HR person who will not be as strict with the management as maybe needed to be.
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry, and I think Deborah wants the Center for Lifelong Learning at a university and Medwork get together. I think this is a conversation we should have, an open conversation with everyone, because I can see people saying, "Great program, thank you so much for tuning in." And Angelique, just really quick goodbye, and Deborah as well, and then we have to round up because coming up at 5:00 is a really exciting program here again on Soppy Mix about health issues and where it all started. So, Angelique, just a quick words of
I
advice.
want just to mention that in September we're going to go to with another round of vertrouwenspersoonopleiding. In February we're going to add integrity within that. So if you're interested in any information about this, send me an email.
They can send an email to Medwork.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can do it at info@medwork.aw or a.vanderhoorn@medwork.aw.
Let's go with the info@medwork.aw.
Yes, I think that's
Deborah, just before we say goodbye, it was really great to have this conversation. It's always so empowering.
And I'm happy for, again, the reactions. Thank you, Eline.
Yes.
Thank you, Angelique, for this very interesting. We knew that
Thank you for
once
inviting us.
it would stir up some, some
and that's
some
the
stuff.
intention of
And
the
that's
University of
intention.
Aruba.
So thank everyone who
Yes.
reacted and participated. Really appreciate. And we look forward to having you then next week.
Yes, and for those of you, if you want to have more information, you're like, hey, I'm also in this area, I would like to contribute. You can also send an email to cll@ua.aw, simply because we want to hear from you, because we are here creating a platform, bringing education closer to you. And as what Deborah says, we're enabling growth in a community. So thank you, everyone, our listeners, our viewers. Isang na Bonaire, saludos cordial. Jan en Annemiek, groeten vanuit de warme Aruba. And my colleagues, remember to tune in next week, where we're going to be looking at our MBA program and our Masters of Law program. Yes. And registration starting online May 15th at the University of Aruba. Yeah, so further education is the key for success on an island. Thank you so much and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.
Yo, you don't know. We going global with